I'm Jenny West. I am with the College of Management Technical Center, and I'm the tax manager. And I'd like to just quickly welcome everybody and tell you thanks very much for joining us, either in person or on the webinar. And I'm going to turn it over to Jack Hockey, who's our host, for welcome from him. So, Jack.
Well, you have to say welcome, so
Can I remember?
yes,
Portland maps right there.
not going to be doing that. Anyway, so welcome to Colorado. Well, most of you are from Colorado. I've been involved with the program when it was called the Alternate Transportation Parks and Grant. It's been fun watching this program grow. I've been on detail with the lab. That's why I've been involved with it. It's a great program. Park Service is probably the biggest player. I read the applications that you get from the East Coast, and just how complicated it is and the congestion issues that you guys have. Forest Service, Fish and Wildlife Service, Bureau of Land Management. We're not one of the biggest players, but we're trying to learn more and be creative in how we can get more involved in hoping we agree with the Technical Center that they're going to help us get more involved and be a bigger player. But anyway, welcome. Does everybody know logistic-wise where the bathrooms are now? Just outside the door. Any questions about logistics or building? If you want to go in and out, you might have to call. They might have to call me to let you back up in and you go out. So.
President Margaritas, did you get here? We'll see if they show up.
All right. Thank you. Welcome. I think it's going to be great to train for us.
All right. Well, thank you, Jack. And again, we're really happy to be here at BLM, and looking forward to getting to know all of you a little bit better today. Again, I'm Jenny West. I'm the tax manager. So if you ever call the tax person, you're going to get me on the other end of the phone or email. And I would actually like to know who all of you are a little bit more, and also who's joining us on the phone, because we do have a lot of webinar participants out there as well, and we want this to be pretty interactive. So I'm just going to ask you to start here and kind of go around the room and just tell us your name. If you don't mind, please speak up so that the here as well. Jan, I'll let you go first. Jan Burton, I'm with the National Park Service. And Veronica Mitchell, I'm with the
I'm Dennis McGow, National Park Service, Denver Service Center, Section Chief in the Transportation Division.
Elijah Henley with Central Federal Lands Highway Division of the Federal Highway Administration in the Planning and Programming branch.
And I'm Susan Law, and I'm in the same branch as Elijah at Central Federal Lands.
I'm Deb Perkins-Smith with David Evans Associates and working with College Sarbanes-Tax. Noah Chavez with the National Park Service, Denver Service Center.
I'm Ed Shum, also with David Evans Associates, working with College Sarbanes-Tax, Transportation Planner.
David James, Bureau of Land Management, Delaware, Montana.
Jenny Strasco, National Park Service and Transportation Division.
Bill Gibson, Bureau of Land Management, Phoenix, Arizona.
Bob Perrin, Bureau of Land Management in the Washington office.
I'm Deborah Fry with the National Park Service, the Intermountain Region in Denver, and I'm the Alternate Transportation Specialist.
I'm James Schaefer. I'm also in the Intermountain Region in Denver, and I manage the transportation program.
Uncle, National Park Service, part-time contractor, and retirees.
Gary Goodrich, retired Park Service. We both work for Berger and contract doing these trip forms for Park Service.
Now,
I'm Stephanie Zabacki. I'm with the Center for Urban Transportation Research out at the University of South Florida.
I'm here just to kind of provide technical assistance for those that are on the webinar.
And I'm Rob Gregg. I'm with Qatar, also from USF, and I'm a tech member.
I'm Phil Shapiro. I'm with Shapiro Transportation Consulting. I'm the Deputy Director of the Sarbanes-Oxley Transit in the Park, Technical Assistant.
Yeah. And Stephanie, I'm not sure how best to do this, but we'd like for the people on the webinar to introduce themselves. So the people on the phone, if you could tell us who you are as well.
Hi, this is Guy at Federal Lands Highways Headquarters. I'm the planning team leader there.
This is Franz Gimmler, member of the TAC team.
Okay.
Oh,
We got Franz, and who was the first
Guy.
person?
Guy.
Okay.
Also, Ann Jocelyn from the Center for Urban Transportation Research.
And Lisa Stays from the Center for Urban Transportation Research.
Kristen Kirkpatrick, Transportation Planner of Central Federal Land. Amber Reef with the Center for Urban Transportation Research.
From the National Service.
Could the two of you please do it again? One at a time?
Sure, Linda McIntyre, National Park Service, Denver Service Center. Jamie Isaac.
This is Paul Schroeden, up in the Alaska region for the National Park Service, the Regional Transportation Coordinator.
And your name is?
Paul Schroeden.
Paul Schroeder. Thank you.
This is Heather Rice with the National Park Service, Alaska Rivers, Trails, and Conservation Assistance Program.
This is Michael Kay with the Volpe Center.
This is Kristen Lewis from the Volpe Center.
This is Jonathan Upchurch, located at Grand Canyon National Park.
It's Marie Messy from Alaska Region Forest Service.
We got everybody now?
Anybody announce themselves?
This is Louis Grimm. I am currently an independent consultant, but I'm a member of the TRB Committee on Transportation and National Parks, Public Lands, and I'm in the process of making a employment transition over to Federal Highway Administration, and we'll be joining the staff in Eastern Federal Lands in a couple weeks.
Congratulations.
Okay.
Any more participants?
Yes, you have Kent Cochran with the National Park Service Southeast Regional Office.
Well, I hope all our webinar participants can hear us okay. The volume's a little bit low on our end, so if you have a question, please try to speak up as much as you can. And we do want this to be an interactive dialogue. For a lot of this, we want to get your feedback. So I'm going to turn it over to Amber Reef from the Center for Urban Transportation Research really quickly to give us just a little bit of information about the format and the ground rules for participation. Amber?
Thank you. I just wanted to give everyone just a brief introduction to this whole live meeting platform that we're on right now as far as folks joining us online. The best thing to do is to mute your telephones. It will help with the audio quality both on your side and our side. And it's best not to have both your audio speakers on and also use your telephone. Sometimes you'll get some feedback there. I also recommend that you don't use your hold button at all. If you put us on hold, we'll hear music and it will interrupt the forum. So if we can ask you not to do that and only place your telephone on hold, on mute, that would be great. There are a few things that you can do to help enhance your experience when you're online. If you're having some difficulties, there's a feedback button and you can let us know if we need to slow down or if you can't hear us. or if things are going well for you, or if you need assistance with something. On the top right-hand corner of your screen, you'll notice that there's a feedback button, and you can color code the issues that you might be having. Additionally, on the top right-hand corner of your screen, you'll note an icon that looks like 3 white pieces of paper. That allows you to review any handouts or presentations that are going to be discussed during this training and regional forum. So all of the materials that you'll be seeing are available for download using that icon button that's called Handouts. Just quickly for the folks who are online, if you're interested in asking a question, of course, you're more than welcome to do it on the phone. We want you to be interactive. We want you to ask questions of the people in the room and the instructors as well, and even those on the telephone. But if you prefer, you can certainly ask a question through the live meeting as well, through the Q&A drop-down menu. Simply just type in your answer, and Stephanie Zavacki, who's handling the technical issues out in the Colorado side, will moderate those questions to the instructor. Again, though, if you have a question, you're more than welcome to ask it online. Just simply unmute your telephone and ask your question. And that's actually it for the technical end of it, and I will hand things back over to Jenny. I know we have a couple of introductory poll questions if you'd like to ask those first.
All right, Amber, are we ready to move on?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, and again, we do want your feedback from this, from both sides, so let us know. We'll hand out a survey at the end to see what you think of how this process works. Our agenda today is our welcome, of course, and I'm going to give a brief overview of the Paula Sarbanes Transit and Parks program, and then also an overview of the Technical Assistance Center along with that. We're going to do an overview of some of the training modules that we're putting together now to give in the future. And then, of course, after the break, we will actually present one of those training modules. Phil Shapiro is going to present training module 2, which is framing the need. And then we'll talk about what's next with the TAC and obviously answer any questions. And again, we do want it to be interactive the entire time. So if you have a question, feel free to just raise your hand or ask on the phone.
Move into the pit.
I'm being asked to move this way, so I hope I'm not blocking the view, though. I'm afraid I am. I'm going to move this table up.
Watch, I hope that helps.
Okay. What is alternative transportation? I think most of you probably know already what alternative transportation is, but one of the things that the TAC really wants people to understand certainly is that it's more than transit. A lot of people tend to think of just buses and shuttles as alternative transportation, but it's a lot more than that, and there are more opportunities for federal land management agencies to put in place other systems. So I've got several examples up here, things like intelligent transportation systems, signage, electronic things, ITS, bike trails, parking management can be considered ATS. If you have issues with parking and trying to get people around. Trams, trolleys, we did a bridge, or the program helped with a walking trail and bridge in Moab. So, and even rail are some examples of what alternative transportation is. The Paula Sarbanes Transit and Parks program, as most of you probably know, was created under the Safety Lou legislation in 2001. Safety Lou was in 2001. This program was created in 2006. And then it was renamed as the Paula Sarbanes program in 2008, which confuses a lot of people because it was known as ATPPL, Alternative Transportation in Parks and Public Lands. So now that same program is known as the Paula Sarbanes Transit and Parks program. It is administered by FDA in partnership with DOI and all the federal land management agencies. They do provide funding for alternative transportation systems, as you know, and the eligible applicants for this program are all the federal land management agencies and also local, state, and tribal governments as long as they are working with a federal land management agency in the process. The goals of the program are to conserve natural, cultural, and historical resources, provide visitor access, reduce congestion, and all the things that federal land management agencies really try to do. It's all about providing access and protecting the resources. And so even to include people with disabilities. The 2009-2010 awards, the 2009 awards came out in a press release a few weeks ago, and they were on FDA's website. And I didn't update this slide, but Friday evening in the Federal Register, the official notice actually came out. So I did send that out to the listserv this morning, and if you're not on the listserv, please let me know and I will get your name on there because we'd like to keep you updated with information on the TAC. This year, well, 46 total awards, that was from this year. More than $24.5 million was awarded. I believe they had over 69 applications. So it is quite a competitive process. And you can see the numbers that are awarded to each agency. And Army Corps of Engineers is actually also included, even though it's not specified in the legislation. But and again, the 2010 notice just came out. So, I'm sorry, the 2010 notice or call for proposals should go out within the next couple of weeks. We're hoping, fingers crossed. And there will be a fairly, I think, a shorter time this year to get applications in. I understand it's going to be a 45-day call rather than a 60-day call, but they're hoping that they can get the award notification out by the end of September this year. Fingers crossed. So on to the TAC. We were established in October of last year. It is a grant under the FTA program. We're part of the Sarbanes Transit and Parks program, but our center is specifically geared toward technical assistance. So that's what we're here to provide. And the mission, of course, you can see there is to provide transportation-related technical assistance and also to help coordinate the project, help the FLMAs in events like this. You know, we'd like to get the FLMAs together discussing some of these things and opportunities to network so that you all know what's going on with each other as well. We do want to be a one-stop shop for technical assistance for all the FLMAs. So we're providing different types of resources, one-on-one assistance, tags, which Phil will talk about, the transportation assistance groups. We'll have trainings such as we're going to do today, and we're also going to have a lot of online resources such as documentation and different forms of resources that you can access online. Ultimately, we like to have a true decision support system, which you can access online. That'll be a little bit down the road. If any of you have ever seen the Federal Land Toolkit, which is on the Central Federal Land site, we hope to have something that's even a little bit more robust than that for you to go to and help you with your alternative transportation problems. And it is a two-way street, so we definitely want to have feedback from all of you about what we're doing and what your needs are and how to go about it. So, you know, the training, the online resources, the individual assistance, we'd like to get your feedback on all of this. This is kind of a reiteration of what the first slide was with all the pictures, just kind of to let you know again that ATS is about more than transit. So, and we'd like to encourage everyone to look at their transportation system in a holistic manner. So not just thinking about a walking path or, you know, one particular solution to one particular problem, but looking at the whole spectrum of how transportation works in a unit and getting that to work efficiently and effectively. Obviously to integrate resources, coordinate resources within the FLMAs and other stakeholders, and also to accelerate implementation of ATS. This is just a quick overview of who the TAC is. And we are sponsored by FTA, and work in partnership with DOI and all the federal land management agencies, including the Forest Service. But our team members include the Western Transportation Institute of Montana State University. That's where the TAC is actually housed. That's where my office is. And we're the lead on the project proposal. And then the team members include Shapiro Transportation Consulting, which Bill Shapiro here.
Here's the company.
The Center for Urban Transportation Research, of course, which we have several members of them both here and on the webinar. And they are our training lead for the project. David Evans and Associates, we've got a couple members here, and they're one of our members. And Deb, you just want to briefly say maybe kind of what DEA's role is, what expertise?
Yes, we're providing technical assistance to the TAC, and just as an example, recently with DESCLAC, we facilitated a meeting up at Red Hill to look at connections between the BLM site and the town of Carbondale. So we're providing technical assistance to the group, developing some case studies, that sort of thing. And we've done a lot of work for different land management agencies, specifically, I guess, most of the Park Service.
Okay. University of Vermont Transportation Research Center and Park Studies Laboratory. They have a lot of expertise in carrying capacity and visitor management, for example. That's one of their areas of expertise. University of Maine Parks, Recreation, and Tourism is another partner. VHB is our IT lead. They're heading up the effort for, we're basically trying to improve upon the evaluation process for the Transit and Parks program, and they're heading up that effort. And then Franz Gimler, who's on the phone with us, and he's got a lot of past experience. He was part of the DOT, and so he's got a lot of great experience as well. So we have a lot of resources that are available to FLMA in alternative transportation and transportation in general. Yes.
Is there a specific VHB office that you work with, or just the company in general?
We're working most closely with a group that's out of the
Well, we're working with right now, there's people from the Capital Region, which is the DC area, and the Boston office. But all their offices are available for assistance.
Yeah.
And one of the things that they provide is environmental assessment, and that's actually out of their Virginia Beach and office. So we're actually the Williamsburg. So we're working with any of these. Okay. Long answer.
Okay, I'm going to try to go through this quickly, because I see that we're already into our next period of time. So, cradle to grave assistance, our goal here is to let you know that we can provide assistance at any stage of the process, from the very beginnings of figuring out what your problem is, or even deciding that you have a problem, all the way through implementation and monitoring of that and evaluation of it. So all the different steps along the way, we can provide assistance there. This is a really colorful little map of how we provide that assistance, and I don't expect you to memorize it, but we broke it down into little steps. Bottom line, it says if you contact us for assistance, or if we proactively contact you, and it is kind of a two-way street, we're doing both. If there is a quick answer that we can provide easily, then we'll just do that. We'll give you a training or some documentation you need or something like that. We can do that very easily. If it's more in-depth, then we would assign you a personal liaison, and they would contact the unit and find out a little bit more about your problem and then determine how far it goes from there. And we can, well, I'll show you in a minute how the steps move. We do coordinate with others, such as Federal Lands Highway and VOLPE and the service centers, to try to make sure that we're using all the resources available to provide assistance. And we would go in kind of steps. We would first find out if there's documents available to help you, and then maybe training, and then it goes to the one-on-one assistance. And the final step in the process, if it's a complex problem, would be putting together a transportation assistance group. So this kind of shows you the level of complexity of the problem goes along with what kind of assistance we would provide. But I will caveat that and say I know that some of the smaller units might actually need more assistance if they don't have as many resources available. A larger unit may have more resources, and even though they have a complex problem, they might not need as much of our help. but we will provide whatever is needed for the type of unit and the type of issue that is there. The last step is follow-up. And so after we provide the assistance that you need, we're going to stay in touch and we're going to follow up with you and find out if the process works, if you've got your grant that you applied for, or if you were able to solve your problem. We're going to help you with evaluations, and then also we'd like feedback on how we did.
I have a question.
And now I'm going to turn it over to Phil. I'm sorry.
I have a question just for clarification. So, Federal Lands Highway and Denver Service Center, we all have A&Es that provide assistance and does transportation studies, and we manage. Do you anticipate that what you're going to be doing is going to replace some of that, or are you really there just for kind of the initial? A unit doesn't know what's going on, doesn't know how to address a certain issue, and then you just start them out, and then they, because there's a lot of levels of detail you can get into. And if you're talking about Cradle to Grave, you're talking about your resources could all go towards, let's say, Yosemite and their transportation problems. So I'm just trying to get an idea of the level of detail that you're willing to go to. For example, we have some needs for traffic data collection at Arches. Is that something that we can have you collect data and do some analysis for?
And I will say yes and no, and Phil can speak to this more in a second.
Okay.
We're still kind of determining exactly what we're going to be providing and finding that out as we go along. But I will say that it really depends on what resources are already available. So we're going to kind of fill the gaps where there aren't resources already there, I would say. Plus, we can, provide more if there are resources there that are difficult to get or people don't know about. I mean, we can certainly help connect. That's one of the things that we're going to be able to do. Further down the road, as we build our center a little bit more, I think we'll be doing things like data collection. I know Phil was telling you earlier that we hope to have a data collection core to help do some of those things. Let's say a unit applies for a TRIP grant and does not receive the grant, then we might be able to provide some of the assistance that they were going to use that money for. So we might do some more in-depth studies, but obviously we have limited resources, so we want to use those as effectively and efficiently as we can to help everybody. I think it's kind of a case-by-case basis how much assistance we're going to provide in each case.
If I might, first of all, the question was, what level of assistance will we provide? Because I think there's some people on the web who couldn't hear it. We're still trying to feel that out, and we would like to provide as much assistance as needed, but depends upon the resources. We do have significant resources, but not unlimited resources. But as Jenny said, it's going to be case-by-case basis. But just as an example, and we've talked about this before, Susan, the data collection, our intent is next year, next fiscal year, to initiate something comparable to the Student Conservation Corps, which I believe works with the National Park Service, where we would have a group of students who would go out during the summer and would collect data, transportation data at different land management agencies, and this would all have to be arranged ahead of time. And that's actually one of the questions we'll have for you is whether you think something like that might be useful. But that's one of the areas that we intend to try to go forward with, because we understand data collection is a need that needs to be addressed. And we actually spent a bit of time, and actually Rob's going to talk more about our needs assessment that we performed back in October, November time frame.
Right.
So I just wanted to further on that question.
Can you touch on my question a little bit about these resources? How do you anticipate getting paid for these services?
And I'm sorry if I probably didn't make that very clear.
Don't tell them, because then we're going to get overwhelmed.
It is fully funded by the FDA. It is a grant under the Transit and Parks program. They're allotted a specific amount to provide technical assistance, and so that is how the center is funded. It's free to the FLMA. So assistance we provide is free.
Now, I will say that if it becomes a very large project, there may have to be some other way of supplementing that. But we're here to make sure things work and to give you as much opportunity to be successful as authorized.
And I see the need as being great. out there in all the federal land management agencies. And I think at some point there's going to be some methodology for prioritization of, you know, the need is this big, and you're right, you have limited resources, and you want to dole them out as efficiently as possible. But yeah, your need's going to be this big once the word gets out and your role gets understood a little bit better. And it's just going to be, anyhow, I'm sure you have thought of this too, is how are you going to prioritize at some point in time when the demand is much greater than your resources. And do you have an answer for that?
Well, first of all, I want to repeat the question. The question, and I'll try to summarize, that there's probably a lot more demand out there than there are resources. So how will we prioritize for the response to those requests? First, right now, if you have a request, get it in, because that's not a problem, and we're open to deal with it. Now, we will have to adjust when we get there, but that's a problem I'm looking forward to dealing with. All right, so let's make it happen.
Yeah, and I'm just going to turn it over to Phil Shapiro now to talk a little bit more about transportation assistance groups.
As if she hadn't already, or I hadn't already taken it over. First of all, I want to reemphasize that this is informal. You on the phone, taking off my tie, because I'm the only one in the room with a tie. Definitely informal at this point. Here, Bob.
Much better, much better.
I'm going to talk a little bit about let me do a sound check at first. If you're having trouble hearing me out there on the web, please send a little message in to Stephanie, and she will let us know. I've never been accused of being soft-spoken, so that shouldn't be a problem. Let me talk about Transportation Assistance Group. That was actually started by the Park Service probably close to a decade ago. And what it is it's site-specific activities to go out and assist in identifying a problem, how to solve that problem, to scope the project, to address simple needs. And then usually it's a 2 to 3 day visit of a number of different people. Susan and I were on one back in October. There have been others. We were actually once with the Fish and Wildlife Service. Then a report is written, and what often happens as a result of them is that a grant is developed by the organization where we went out to do the tag. And that is, as it was shown in that diagram before, that's sort of like the last level of assistance when you call in, do we need to set up a tag? And we will coordinate them with the federal land management agencies, because we don't want to go out and do a tag somewhere where they don't want us. So, and this next slide is a diagram that shows the 5-phase transportation assistance program. And the process was actually never really documented until just recently when we tried to put it together. And there's the first phase is to initiate the tag. And that's when you might call in with a request. We might go to the regional rep for your agency, say, they've asked for a request. We think a tag is appropriate. Should we go forward? And then we would do some of the logistics after that for the pre-tag arrangements. We work, let me just, okay. Then we would go out there and define the purpose of the tag. We would identify who the participants should be, where it should be located. We'd work with the local unit to determine where it should be, when it should be, who should be there, identify stakeholders who should participate, and then, I keep hitting the wrong button. Then we have the tag meeting, and I'm summarizing because we don't really want to spend our whole day on this. We will conduct the tag meeting, and we will meet with the stakeholders. We'll tour the site to determine the conditions. We'll have some work sessions, and then we do an out briefing with the lands agency to describe what our recommendations are going to be. And then the post-tag, we prepare a report, and we review that. We have you review the report. We deal with it. And then something new, the tag report is posted. And then something new, which was never done before, is a follow-up, where we would check in after 6 months to see what has happened as a result of the tag and what possibly other assistance might be needed. So I know that was very brief. Yes, all right.
Just very quick question. It looks like it's TAC/Volpe for a lot of these things, and then initiate, pre-meeting, and so forth.
Yeah.
But then Volpe's not part of the team.
No, that deserves some explanation.
Yeah, I'm curious about that.
Well, Volpe has been doing. I'm too loud now?
No, you're good.
Okay, Volpe has been doing these tags up until now, and they still have funding from some of the land management agencies to conduct tags.
And they're on their own pot. This isn't out of the same tax pot.
No, it is not out of the tax pot.
Deal that they've got set up.
That's right.
You guys are just coordinating with.
Yes, we're coordinating with them as much as we can. Yes, Jack.
I just want to mention, my understanding is the tag is really a model that was developed by the National Park Service.
Yep.
And then
Right.
Volpe kind of did it. You've got some great resources there at your.
So Volpe back with the Park Service when they initiated it 10 years ago, where they created the alternative Cat 3 stuff. They came up with a model how to do it, and they've been active and funded that way.
And I think correct me if I'm wrong, Phil, but doesn't the Park Service, they'll still go out and do tags, like their own tags.
Yes.
Without their TAC.
The question that everybody here, I'll repeat the question. The question was, what is Volpe's role in all this? And they were facilitating tags for FTA and for land management agencies up until we became a technical assistance center. And now they still are doing some work with the land management agencies to perform tags. So, but we are working with them. In fact, the one that Susan and I went to, we were there with Volpe, and actually Volpe ran that one. Any other questions on this? Additional TAC resources. We intend to develop a peer-to-peer program to facilitate connections between all of you out there and all of the land management units. Somebody mentioned Yosemite earlier. Frankly, Yosemite's got their own transportation staff. I can't imagine them needing anything from us. However, I think the people at Yosemite have a lot to share with other land management agencies. No? You don't think so? and I won't think you said that. Anyhow, so they may become a peer who they can contact if they have a question. And that's true. We're going to try to set up this peer-to-peer program so that there will be an ability to have that cross-fertilization of ideas. So that's one of the things. We're going to try to encourage partnerships between nearby FLMA units. And that's something that I think really could be done. There's actually one out there in Nevada, the Red Rocks, the canyon, and then I can't remember the name of the Forest Service group that just got a grant. But anyhow, they both have a need, and there's some way to facilitate. Another good example I have is somehow facilitating some work between Harper's Ferry National Historic Park and the Antietam National Battlefield, which are very close to each other, and perhaps facilitating something there. Resource materials. We are going to have a number of resource materials, some of which are already. This here, and you're free to come over and look at it, is a document called Transportation Planning Process for Transit and Federal Land Management Areas, and it's a 3-volume document. Actually, it's 4 volumes, but 3 volumes are here, and there's different levels of detail in each volume. We also have right here a guide to promoting bicycling on federal land. This was developed, I believe, by WTI. We have here a training course catalog, which Cutter has been working with us to develop of existing training courses. And we also will be having an online document system that will allow you to identify what documents are out there and be able to perhaps even get PDFs of them online. Jenny has already mentioned the training, the decision support system. What have we done so far? Well, one thing, we're just finishing a case study for Moab. It's actually in draft form right here. And Deb is actually going to finalize it next week, so pass this to Deb so she can finalize it. It's a case study on Moab. Inside your notebook there is a best practices document on framing the needs for transportation improvements. As mentioned, the inventory of the 500 resources collected and categorized. We have a listserv, and Jenny will be handing out a sign-up sheet for those of you who are not in the list on the listserv to sign yourself up. We are coordinating with Volpe to provide the best we can with the services, the forum, which is today, and the new web page. We actually have a web page out there, but it's rather limited right now. The new web page should be out later this month, and you'll actually be able to get a link to the transportation planning guide. In fact, I think I'll pass that around. Different versions of it. And so other documents that you may need. I'm going to fall if I. There you go. All right. We're doing some more case studies. Santa Ana National Wildlife Refuge, Cape Cod National Seashore. That's Grand Island National. It threw me for a while for a second. The first four, we did one from each of the land management agencies. We're working on a best practices manual on non-motorized transportation. And we have 3 more trainings that we're working on. Rob's going to talk a lot more about the trainings. And the peer-to-peer, which I've already mentioned. And please contact us. There's multiple ways to do it. You can call us. You can go to the website, which is www.triptac.org, or you can send an email. And all the addresses and phone numbers are in the documents that you have, either on the web or for those of you in person on paper. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Rob to talk about the training resources that we have and our plans.
So could stay up with me for a minute. Just to remind people on the phone, if you could mute your phones, but we just want to give you an opportunity to ask some questions of what's been presented thus far. Any questions about what we're doing, why we're doing it, or who's doing it?
Hi, this is Heather Rice up in Anchorage, Alaska, and I work with the Rivers, Trails, and Conservation Assistance Program of the National Park Service. So we provide technical assistance to communities all around the state, and this is a nationwide program helping them with outdoor recreation and resource conservation projects. And the communities, they don't have to be linked to a national park unit. But I'm wondering if this TAC is a source of information and help that we could refer people to for RTCA projects, or do the projects you work on have to be within the borders of FLMAs?
I don't think they have to be within the borders of an FLMA. Are these, as I understand your program, it's sponsored by the National Park Service. Is that not correct?
Yes, that's correct. It's a National Park Service program.
And therefore, we're available to provide assistance.
Excellent. Thank you.
Any other questions out there?
Yeah, it's just I guess I had a question. You know, there's a component of providing technical assistance as it relates to a specific need in a region or as in a unit or what have you. But I'm wondering in terms of more programmatic level assistance, if there's challenges with the way, for example, if you have a project that has somewhat of a multi-year funding requirement and you're trying to spec that out, and tying into the way FTA administers these funds, for example, what kind of assistance do you provide federal lands or people that don't apply as it relates to, say, maybe process improvements or programmatic level types of things?
Okay, the question was, what kind of assistance can we provide to improve the program and the grant process, correct? That was the question. All right, well, there's certain things we can do and certain things we can't do. We can certainly serve as a conduit for receiving comments on the process. We are not responsible for the process. We are also currently, and actually it wasn't on the list of things we're doing because we're not done with it yet, but we're developing an evaluation system, an automated evaluation system that should facilitate the evaluation of the project to make it a lot smoother and a better process there. But the multi-year is something that's been mentioned by many people, and I have no answer, but we're aware of it, and we've passed that on to FTA, but I'm not sure that there's anything going on. But anything, in fact, again, Rob will talk about our needs assessment, but we went out and did a needs assessment of what people thought we should do to help, and probably number one was providing assistance in improving the program, which we have a limited amount of resources. The other thing I have to mention that we cannot do is we cannot help units or anybody develop their actual grant application. We can go out and give them assistance on defining the need, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, and other aspects preliminary to the grant application itself. But we cannot help develop that grant application. We cannot write it. Volpe will be able to provide more assistance than us on doing that if it's needed.
Well, yeah, because the agency would kick in their funds to pay Volpe to do whatever they can, right?
Well, I can't speak to the mechanism. I can just say that they're available to do that. But BLM actually has a contract with them that allows them to do it. I'm sure others do as well. Yes.
We have a question from online. It says, it was not clear to me during the initial introductions if a representative from the Federal Transit Administration was participating in this forum. If not, why not, and what is a role and technical side of this work?
I don't believe anybody from FDA is participating right now. There's nobody online, right?
Hey, Phil, this is Mary Ann Popowitz from FDA.
Oh, hands on the phone. Okay.
I'm not sure I can answer the question because, as I've mentioned to other groups, I'm kind of pinch hitting for the program, and I don't know the overall picture of it. But we are listening because those that are involved had conflicts with other meetings.
Okay, and the rest of the question had to do with their continuing role in technical assistance. Well, we are and Mary Ann, you correct me if I'm wrong, we are, from a technical assistance perspective, we are an extension of FTA, and that's what we're here to do. Any other questions online? Come on, ask those questions. It's supposed to be interactive. It'll be a long day if I have to be up here for all of you, if I have to be up here talking too long. Anybody else? Okay, now we'll turn it over to Rob.
I do want to make one announcement for those of you that are on the computer that are logged in via live meeting. In the upper right-hand corner of live meeting, there is what looks like 3 little white pieces of paper. If you click on that, you'll be able to download all of the PowerPoints and handouts that each of the participants in the room have available. So please take a moment or so to download those 3 documents.
Good day. My name is Rob Gregg, and again, I'm with the Center for Urban Transportation Research. And we're somewhat of a misnomer because we do urban transportation research, but we're also an RTAP center, so we do a rural transportation assistance as well. And as you heard, I'm going to talk a little bit about a needs assessment program. But if I want to get one point across to you, the needs assessment isn't over. In fact, part of what I'd like to talk to you today is get some input from folks in the room as well as people online as we continuously kind of develop our needs assessment. And why didn't the rest of my stuff come up? I see. We'll get there. I think that's all right. Okay. What I'd like to do with the time that I have is give you an overview of the needs assessment. It's going to be very brief because I'm going to kind of intertwine what we found out in the needs assessment with the modules, a comprehensive training modules that we've developed for the program thus far. And again, the thus far is we're going to take some feedback that we get from this forum, and we do have one training module that Phil will be taking care of later today, and then maybe feed that back into the modules we've developed thus far. And previously there was kind of a question about how do we prioritize technical assistance. Well, one of the thoughts here is as we refine these training modules, and I'm going to go through them in a moment and maybe get some feedback from you, is if we could hit some base information, base approaches and resources in those training programs, that might give some good information on the topic as far as technical assistance goes, but then it would be very specific, as we've heard in our needs assessment of that specific. So let me shift gears and go to Sesame Street. For those of you not familiar with Sesame Street, I am, because I have 4 kids. One of the most clever educational techniques is one of these things that's not like the others. So our little clever example here is, what process do we use? What approach do we use as we vision on what type of alternative transportation systems do we want? How do we look ahead into the future, and what are we looking ahead to and trying to preserve or protect? I'm not going to have a chance today to play that game anymore, but there are more pictures, and some of you may be at home and have Sesame Street, and you can play that music and look at the pictures as we go along. A little bit on the approach we initiated to get some identification of what are the needs. What are you all experiencing out in the field? What particular issues do you have that, again, might be addressed through the TRIPS program? And we started off with a regional survey, and I guess eventually have maybe all of this on the website. As well as some interviews, and we held a peer group workshop that Phil mentioned in D.C. Several months ago. And particularly what we heard was time is precious, travel is precious. Is there a way maybe to do something like what we're doing today, which is a type of approach to get some information and then kind of follow up with us through the center. With that, we got some feedback of perhaps looking at computer-based training modules. So along with these modules I'm going to talk about today, how we might indeed not only have them available in a webinar like this, but have YouTube or some type of link on our website where you can do some self-training and go through some self-computer support. We heard that let's use some case studies, let's see what's relevant to us, but we also heard that transportation issues are local. It's very specific problems that we may have, and how might we approach that. So as you can hear, we're trying to refine a certain level of training that might lead down to very specific technical assistance for you all. And time and again in each of the modules that I'm going to go over, we heard the question about how can we measure success, how can we utilize performance measures in this effort of looking at alternative transportation systems. So again, a little bit of an emphasis on what I just mentioned, the distance learning with webinars, netcast, internet-based training. The netcast might be a live event of providing information, and then it would be recorded so that you can go back and look at it. And then these CBTs, computer-based training approach, where you could log in and kind of go through the Sesame Street thing of more interactive, self-paced training for the individual. So let me start with Module 1. We have a series of 10 modules. Again, one of them will be presented today. And this is where you can help me be a little bit interactive. I've got bullets in my modules that I'll briefly point to, and maybe point out some of the things that we heard in our outreach effort, our initial outreach effort, to hear what you all need. But in this room, and again on the web, for those of you online, you can help me by pacing myself, because I have limited time here in my presentation. But maybe shout out, hey, that's right on, that's what we need. Or maybe shout out and say, you missed something and this is the topic. And then we're going to come back later on with time permitting to maybe expand upon that. Those of you online, don't be afraid to ask a question or just make an observation, because we'll have a document, that documented, and we can follow up with you if you do that online. So interesting enough, as I look through the needs assessment and needs assessment and what we got back from the surveys, it was just some simple stuff. Help us identify what all alternative transportation systems are. you heard earlier, it's not just about bus, it's not just about the transit aspects of things. It's multimodal, it's pedestrian, it's bicycle, it's pathways. So we thought that indeed should be one of the basic modules of discussing what ATS is and helping to look at the local needs. We have a separate module just on needs itself, but look at those visitor expectations and start to consider what might ATS be and how might it relate to the goals and objectives of the FMLA. Any bullets jump out at you, or other bullets in this topic area that you might want to expound upon? I'll wait 10 seconds. Anything? Pretty basic? Yes.
I don't know if this is in one of the later modules, but one thing that seems to be coming up more frequently is carrying capacity. And so maybe an introduction to VERP, or limited acceptable change, which are common Federal Management Agency terms used for carrying capacity and how transportation relates to managing specific sites.
Good. That's a good one. And it actually comes up in a couple of modules.
So it is in a module, okay.
In fact, I believe we're developing a module on that just for this year.
Huh?
Nothing when it's, we'll get to that.
Yeah. I'll know it when I see it. ATS, not stealing any thunder. It's a blank slate with a couple of pictures, but Phil's going to give a presentation on defining those needs, and that's our module too. So I don't need any interaction right now. Save it for Phil. He's waiting for it. ATS training module 3 is data collection and analysis. So some relevance to y'all of what we heard in the survey was particularly how do we collect data, particularly traffic data. And there were quite a few comments on not only procedures and methodologies, but maybe standards of collecting travel data. This particular module we designed thus far to look at processing that data, how to analyze it, and then how might you use that data to establish an evaluation and monitoring program. And so again, kind of relating to the previous question about technical assistance, our thought was give some basic in the training modules. And you all may indeed, as usual, find out, well, I don't have the expertise that I need, and now that I understand what I need, might need to make that part of a grant application or part of that process that many of you have used under the TRIPS program. Any bullets that jump out at you?
Like observation more than a question is when we're talking about data collection and analysis, are you talking about trying to establish like a one-stop shop for this data? Are you trying to establish guidelines that whoever's doing whatever, wherever, would use the same standard to do it? What is the goal, I guess, in this module from a TAC perspective out to the field?
I'll try to answer it. This is actually another one of my areas, so I'll try to answer this. It's mostly to give guidelines. We don't intend to have standards. I don't think we can define standards for everybody. We can give guidelines on what's a good way to collect data and actually provide perhaps templates for collecting the data, etc. As far as a one-stop shop, we are going to develop a bit of, which has, again, is not this year, is a data, on our website have a data section, and I can't tell you what that's going to be, but I'm sure it isn't going to be a complete repository on existing data.
And this is more than just alternative transportation. I'm presuming this would be other base data that you would have, like traffic counts, for example, or
where to get those traffic counts.
Where to get those and that kind of thing. What exactly the nature of that website looks like and what you guys actually do sounds like it's kind of fluid.
Oh, and we'll come back and ask you about your thoughts on it next year. We'll be ready to do it.
Okay.
And again, one of the perspectives I have there on that question is if you're going to identify your needs, one way to identify it is what data do you need to address. If you have a problem, what type of data? So again, some basic training on what type of data you could collect. Aside from just, that might be a great future idea of having some databases that are available. Any other thoughts? Anybody on the web keeping up with us? Any questions? Okay, this group is ahead of the web. Training Module 4 is establishing partnerships and stakeholder participation and public involvement. Again, reflecting on the feedback we got thus far, there were a number of perspectives on how do we address our partners in perhaps funding an effort or even looking from the perspective outside the FMLAs, local government, and the general public. So some thought here. In fact, one specific comment that I remember was maybe the need to communicate better with the local state DOT on transportation projects that we're talking about. So we devoted a module to specifically look at how might we help you all establish some basic communication programs, establish partnerships, and communicate better and better define maybe what the issues are and how might we address them. It helps you really well as you go through a process and come down to developing a project that can have some local support. Any observations on this one or thoughts? We have somebody on the net. We hooked them up.
Yes. First, before I ask the question that was coming in online, it's important, just as a reminder to those of you that are on the phone, to please mute your phones. We can hear rustling of papers or beeping or something that's going on in someone's office. So just as a friendly reminder, please do mute your phone. The question online is a fairly long one, but I'll go ahead and read it. It says, in addition to mechanical solutions and vehicle systems, we also have a need for parking management strategies, perhaps reservation systems to keep within carrying capacities, facilities built with visual resource management concerns. Some of our units that were built with traffic needs of 20 plus years ago that were rural or remote, but are not near urban traffic or visitation, roadways and parking lots that are failing and inadequate to today's traffic flow.
So there.
So that's it. I told you it was fairly long.
Do we have a comment on that?
Yeah, the parking management is one of the areas that the TAC is able to address, and we can provide assistance on that. And there's a number of different ways of supporting that. One is to substitute another mode for that automobile or to provide as a supplement to that automobile. But there's also ways of perhaps better managing the parking that you might have. So we are available to provide assistance with that as well. And I believe that the Sarbanes grants can be used for parking management.
And I think I heard a hint in that question about ITS, Intelligent Transportation Systems.
Oh yeah, and ITS is definitely a part of what we're providing.
Get around right along to Module 5, formulate and evaluate alternatives in final project selection. There's a bunch of bullets here. I'm not going to read every one for you, but the issues I think at hand was, again, how do we not start with this is the answer and then kind of fumble through that process to maybe step back and maybe start from a perspective of looking at developing alternatives. What is the issue? What data have we collected that proves something? What might be some measures of effectiveness that we could address? And how might we apply those to some type of criteria that would indeed help us formulate some alternatives and come up with maybe a preferred alternative. This then wraps around, as you can hear, with some of the other modules that we just talked about, and how we pull in the public involvement and the stakeholders in the community to be part of that selection process. This avoids, from experiences, this module here and what it's about really avoids issues down the road of doing your homework, bringing consensus on what the issues are, and defining what alternatives might come about. You might go forward with a couple of alternatives, and then you start to kind of really narrow down on what's most effective and maybe what's most affordable. Any comments on this module, or wows, or hey, you forgot something else?
Rob, real quick, are these modules that people can in effect order the training for in any kind of order? I think I missed that.
Let me clarify again. The way I guess we're looking at it is we have a series. And the first one, Module 2, will be presented today.
Right.
And then we'll have presentation, we'll have the modules being presented. Some of them haven't even been developed yet, and so that's where we could keep on getting some feedback on them. But eventually, those, after perhaps Phil provides his module today, that information then becomes a resource that can be revisited, and we'll have that information available through linkages on the website.
So stay tuned. Module 3 would be coming later on, and then Module 4, and then at some point when others get developed, they'd be available, and then you could order them in a combination depending on your need, depending as this thing evolves.
Exactly, and that's exactly the way we're looking at it. And as you can hear, we've defined 1 through 10, but we're out of sequence already. It's not necessarily in sequence because of the issue just brought up. And somebody might say, okay, I got this module down, I need some information from this particular module.
Thanks.
The other thing is that our hope is to make them all available via computer-based training. That's because one of the things we heard was we don't want to all have to travel to Denver to come to a training. It's not nice in Denver or anything, but that we hope to be able to make them available in computer-based training, so you'll be able to not just order them, you'll be able to log onto the website and pull up the thing and actually go through it and come back to it.
A suggestion for this module would be the Park Service has a very established process called value analysis choosing by advantages, and it might be good for other federal land management agencies to learn how those made through that established process. So that would be a good case study in this.
Actually, there's other techniques that are used by some of the other land management agencies, and we would hope to include them as well. But yes, choosing by advantage will have to be a part of what we talk about here.
But again, that's a good observation of trying to synthesize what is out there, and if those resources are available, here's a module to go to and learn a bit about it, and get some references, and further refine what you need.
And I'm sure the Park Service already has training developed on value analysis and choosing by advantages as well. That's more general than transportation.
Yeah, I got you.
Excuse me, I don't see any reference to sustainability.
We have a module just on that, and it's terms financial as well as sustainability. It came out loud and strong in our survey and outreach. So help me out when I get there, okay? I'm doing okay time? Module 6 is our favorite work, and one of my favorite works is NEPA process and the environmental impact assessment. And a lot of you know about this process and work with this process, but again, it was identified as a need to provide some basic understanding of NEPA, to understand what the impact could be on you as you develop a project, as you look at the social and historical aspects of impacts, as well as the natural environmental impacts that a transportation improvement might incur. So again, I'm not reading all the bullets for you. Any observations about this one, or thoughts, or even experience?
You might want to bullet there, linking planning and NEPA. That's a big topic area. Linking planning and NEPA.
Planning and NEPA.
Yeah, because there's a lot of stuff that you do that doesn't require a NEPA action that you do in advance to make sure you have good purpose and need before you get to a point of doing the project level stuff. A whole area of stuff going on around that topic.
And again, that's how that public participation process comes into play also.
And this is Heather Wright up in Anchorage again. Just to also emphasize the point that the person just made.
I think probably is that. Oh, sorry.
No, that's all right. I was just going to say NEPA is a planning process, so make sure in this module that people realize they should use it as a planning process as opposed to a hoop you jump through, once you've already made up your mind.
Good point.
NEPA is the planning process.
That's right.
Clear, which sometimes gets lost. So you can't have a better linkage than that. It is a planning process.
Well, but there's a lot of planning activities that don't require a NEPA action that you need to do leading up to a point before you trigger a NEPA action, and how all those things get lined up and linked up, I think it's an important piece of this.
To incorporate the DOT guidance on that, which is
There you
all
go.
linking planning and NEPA.
There you go. I'm sorry, was there any other comment online? Okay, we'll proceed. No, we won't. We went backwards. Here we are with what we put together on this particular module was financial cost estimating, financial sustainability analysis. Some of the comments that I remember from the feedback and our outreach was the need to understand the ongoing investment in expenses in certain transportation improvements. A few comments on replacement of capital and vehicles, and again, kind of looking strategically into the long-range aspects of things with alternative transportation improvement. So you can see here we talk about service delivery options and their impacts on cost, methods of estimating, cost of planning, design, and construction of improvements. There seems to be a lot of interest in that. How do we really get our arms around cost estimations? Methods, as I mentioned, of major overhaul or replacement of capital, and estimating life cycle costs, that aspect of assessing sustainability of the system.
I don't know if it actually does. I mean, this seems like this is all focused on financial sustainability, which is something very distinctive than sustainability as it relates to environmental sustainability, or a big kind of a hot topic these days is livability. To me, the new, what they're calling sustainability these days is now called livability. That seems to me very distinctly different than what you guys are presenting here. So I don't know, and it probably, I would say, constitutes a module you probably would want to incorporate and develop, because livability, that's like one of those things, climate change and livability related stuff, that's kind of the area that I think there's a lot of activity both on the mitigation and the adaptation side, as well as what does livability mean when right now the challenge I see for us in the federal lands context is that everything, if you look at the principles that DOT's come out, and we've partnered with HUD and EPA, they're all very urban-centric. They're all talking about transit-oriented development. They're talking about high densification and this type and the other thing. In a lot of the areas where our lands are, these are not really applicable models. And so what is that, and how does then alternative transportation play into livability or climate change? The two overlap. They're distinct in some areas. That's a whole area where I think everybody needs more guidance, and we're all kind of grappling with what we're supposed to do with that. And again, that's very distinctly different when you're talking about you have a system, the feasibility of a system. What do you do to make sure that it's financially viable, which is also very important, but something very distinctly different.
That's very good. That's exactly what we want to get from you, that maybe there's another module to define. And, my background in the public transportation side, there's a lot of interest and grant funding related to that, and this administration really focused on that livability aspect, energy conservation, and climate control. So that's good. For those of you online, again, if you have some thoughts on developing a module like that, speak louder. Speak louder. For those online who might have some thoughts on developing a module like that, please send in your notes either during the session or after the session.
This is Heather Rice in Anchorage. Two things. One is in regard to sustainability. We have an organization up here called Alaska Trails, which is an advocacy and educational group, and they've developed a training module for designing and building sustainable motorized and non-motorized trails. So that might be a piece of the module that you develop or could possibly be incorporated into it. But as for Module 7, I just had a quick question on costs, and especially planning costs, whether you intend to incorporate the cost of data collection, environmental compliance, and et cetera, that also are part of that planning piece that a lot of people forget about when they're putting together cost estimates for a project.
You know, that wasn't, as I recall, that wasn't particularly identified, and we'll mark that down. I don't believe that was identified in, we have more information than this synopsis that we're presenting today. So we'll take note of that. Thank you for that comment. One thing I missed on my own slide in red here is this is the next module after, today we have module 2 being presented, and I think in the queue is this financial cost and financial sustainability module.
It's a related point here. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but for TRIP, is operations an eligible expense? Can people put in a grant for operations? No, not at all. But is that out of safety law prohibits that, or just FTA as they set up the policy for administering this program prohibits that?
As I understand it, safety law does not include operations.
Again, this is where interesting things, my mind's ticking as you talk there, this is where interesting things happen with partnerships and existing transportation systems and what makes sense in a project that might bring operating resources to the table, but not on the trips.
But this is just purely capital improvement.
And I would say planning.
And planning for capital improvement. Okay.
These next modules, again, I'm going to try to speed it up a little bit. But these next modules go to some of the conversation previously, and it was that cradle to grave, which I really don't like. I kind of like birth and rebirth. But the thought here was that we go beyond just defining a project, and we think beyond getting the grant. And again, from the feedback we received and from our experiences, heard from Jenny, we have a lot of people, a lot of depth of experience. We thought there was indeed a need to define modules that kind of looked at, well, if you define the need, you're fortunate to get a grant, what's the next steps? What are the issues before you? And again, this might also help in addressing some technical assistance perspectives and just maybe setting the table. So Module 8 was specifically looking at engineering, design, and construction, and looking at a module that addresses how to develop a management plan and a scope of service for engineering and design, perhaps some templates here. This kind of permeates into the next module I'm going to talk about, but consultant selection process for engineering and architectural services. How to identify maybe design alternatives and select a preferred design, and then getting into that preliminary engineering all the way up to some type of construction perspective and a way to deliver the project. So again, this point is to go, let's say we're fortunate enough to indeed move into the grant process itself. Beyond planning, there's some logical planning now to bring in aspects of design and construction. So we've identified it for a module. Does that make sense? We kind of heard that was a need. Does it make sense to you all as a need?
So someone would come and write a grant. Hey, we got the grant. And you guys would come back and provide technical assistance, how they would procure consulting services, take care of their preliminary engineering and all that. Is that what that is?
It's training for them to do it themselves.
This is the training.
But we also are available to help with that as well. To help with the development of, because we actually have, one of the things we got as feedback is that people get grants or organizations get grants and then they don't know what to do with it. And so we're here to help them at that point.
As I see, that indeed is a possibility. I mean, that would fall under technical assistance. I mean, it goes along with your stream of thought here. What module do I need for training that I might pick? Any one of these 10 or 11 now. And then now that I'm in this stage of a project, what kind of technical assistance might I need to address beyond just these training modules?
No, I don't see any reference to the topic of context-sensitive solutions, because that relates to visitor experience. If you go back to Module 5, you reference visitor experience, but context-sensitive solutions contribute to that visitor experience.
think it's embedded in there. I don't know who is actually doing that module or who it is. I don't think we've defined it yet.
Maybe. Put that down, please.
This is what we want to catch. Okay, I've got 5 minutes, so let me blast away here. Module number 9, again, got the project defined. You have some funding to move forward. What might be some procurement planning and management techniques. Looking at third-party procurement process. And again, a number of you may have this down pretty well and deal with the appropriate federal funds and the processes, but we've also heard that there might be a need for this type of training, maybe some templates, and maybe some best practices in this area. I'm going to try to take these last two at the same time just so I get it out for you. And the final module that we developed, subject to 11 being developed, is project implementation methods of operation and monitoring. I particularly heard some messages in our outreach thus far about how do we kind of really evaluate operating options. How do we actually unveil it, our new services? How do we market? How to deal with public relations? So we've defined a module to deal with that, as well as this is what kind of the rebirth and coming back to looking at the goals and objectives of the project and how well they're doing, but maybe a process of tracking and continuation of collecting the data to see how well the project is performing, and might it be part of another cycle for a continuous improvement and further investments by the partners. So let me stop there. I think that's the time that was devoted to me. I'll just leave it open again. Are there any observations or comments about these last two modules? And you can always continue to provide us some input. Yes?
One of the things that seems to be our biggest problem here in Paramount is we have good systems in place. I'm thinking transit systems, how well it is, but operations and maintenance. And to me, in order to be fair to people who are looking superintendents or park staff or looking at transit as our answer for fixing our congestion problems, up front somewhere on module 1, discussion of methods for paying for these things, because it's they're eating us alive, and it's a bad situation we're in right now. So somehow that level of understanding and comprehension needs to be expressed to our staff when they bring these things up. And so I would right off the bat in module 1.
It's actually the next module we're developing training for is the financial sustainability, which includes that element. That's next on our list.
But even before that, most likely, if you're a little bit logical, you're going to start out at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and make your way to...
We're not.
We're not.
We're using your logic.
That's the deal of trying to learn something about this. That's how they're going to go through it. And so, for them to understand right away, what are you talking about? What kind of effect is it going to have on your base budget?
Yeah.
How are you going to pay for all the work you have to have done if all your fee money goes into the transit? That stuff needs to be upfront.
So on your module 1 right now, it's not that what Jane just said doesn't look like it's listed there as a bullet. I think you should probably add that.
Something, a piece should be added.
I totally agree, and also that you have an issue here. I think is you guys are administering a grant program that's only for capital improvement. And you've said that now that operations are prohibited, but basically what you're doing now is shifting then some requirement for the Park Service, whoever does the project, to somewhere else. And somehow you've got to deal with that. If you're planning and you're going forward to implement a new system, and all you're paying for is the capital improvement of that, then you put them in a spot where now they can't move anywhere.
Can you go back to the financial sustainability one? Because that was actually one of the major reasons we were doing this financial sustainability.
You definitely want to do that once you really actually start moving forward for training, and you've taken it past the first few steps, and you got people learning. Outstanding, yeah, you've got to go there. But at the very beginning, at the very front end.
It might be it's a good thought. And it might be a way to make sure, because there's so much interchange between the modules to kind of give fair warning in the particular development of the project, that you really need to, here's an issue, and go to, it would be some cross reference.
Or maybe we're going to develop something And we have to think it through. Maybe a good idea is coming from that, in that we could develop something as, be careful. This is what you're getting yourself into.
Exactly.
This is what you're getting yourself into here.
Some case studies is what I
Bring the
want to
text.
pay for.
Yeah. I'm actually going to speak a little bit to that in the module we're going to talk to today.
Yeah, was there a comment on the phone? No? Okay.
Yeah, piggybacking on to what Jane just said, I think something that happens among federal land management agencies and park units is that some park units get transit envy. Like they say, oh, well, they have transit, we need it. And so like, maybe early on is how do you define that need? If you have congestion 2 days a year, you need to start a expensive transit system and look at other ways to manage congestion other than we need a transit system. So I think like looking at holistically at what the needs are out there, rather than we just want this, we want to say that we have a transit system.
Or just the lack of knowledge of any other things. I don't know if it's so much envy as we've got a problem. Oh my God, it's a problem. 2 days a year, it's horrible.
Right.
Quick, Jenny, put up the training module. Ready to go. Ready to go. Forget about the break.
I just got another suggestion for you guys. It seems to me like, again, building on Jane's point, but I think more on all the conversation is, there's nothing in Module 1 that tells you which would be the natural thing when someone's thinking about starting with getting help would be to go to Module 1. It seems to me like that almost should be somewhat of like an overview of all the different things that you have to pick from, so that then you can understand because right now it's very much kind of focused to a specific topic, but really that topic is relevant to all the modules that you're presenting there. And I wouldn't know, going by Module 1, that I have all these other modules or how they all speak to each other. So maybe it's an overview of all that, or a menu you can pick from based on your need or something.
One of the things that we didn't realize, and that was the reason for the forum, was to kind of really figure out, well, how do we intermingle all of this, and how do we communicate it? So this is very valuable to us.
And maybe each module should probably include a list of all the modules, so we can start in there. Or maybe even, well, there's some other things we can work on now.
So I think we're going to take a 15-minute break, and is there any more questions from people on the phone in this record? Okay, so we're going to take a 15-minute break, and then we'll come back for the training module, number 2.
Great.
We can put that issue continuing class
Jumps around from module, to be sequential.
Yeah, I know.